What's good, y'all? Yeah, it's Mike at jhbizz, and I'm back with another one. And today, family, we sitting back in with Off the Grid Network, and none other than the big homie she. We talking about AI, aliens, mermaids, and you know we can't live without Bigfoot. Without no more further ado, let's get to it.
All right, off the grid network, we got big homie CC. How you doing today?
I'm doing good. What's that word?
Man, a lot of the internet is constantly looking to you to have information on paranormals and cryptids. You're one of the leading influencers that has the most information on mermaids with actual proof that backs it up.
Absolutely.
What is some of the signs of proof that you can give to the world that you have about mermaids?
Well, the ultimate sign of proof is going to always be eyewitness testimony, because eyewitness testimony and circumstantial evidence is good enough to get you a life sentence in every court on the earth. And you got to take that into consideration, because if you get the same answers while you're doing these interviews with people on different continents, that's a group of information that is no longer sequestered. Now we've grasped it, and now we got to analyze it straight up. You know, the biggest, they always say to prove something, the burden of proof falls on the investigator. And people always say, well, where's the camera footage? You know, people know oxygen exists, but they don't see it on camera. So, you know, that's one of the paradoxes about the human condition. Because if you take us back to the hunter and gatherer days, if we didn't trust the words of our peers, there would be a loss of life. Because if me and Ro go down to the lake to get water and we see a pack of wolves, we come back, hey, don't go down there by that lake. It's a pack of wolves. And then somebody goes down there and you don't come back. Now the village has to put people at risk to go and find you. And, you know, I was in Mombasa, Kenya, on the coast, and out there, people don't respond well if you putting a camera in their face. You know, they'll get aggressive with you. So you have to approach people with a certain set of humbleness. And one of the fishermen told me that. He said, if you want answers, spend the night on the beach. So, you know, I thought about it for a few days, went and got a tent. I spent the night on the beach, because after 6 p.m., they tell you there's no swimming allowed. Everybody's compound on the coast has electric charged wire, and everybody got a big gate. Why do they have this? I thought it was just for the monkeys. But they say there are other things that work here. But all of these locations are tourist destinations. And they say if we tell people how dangerous this truly is, we can't make money to feed our children. So they just close the beach at a certain time. And if you go look on my page on TikTok, Big Homie CC, the clip that came out about on the Know Your Row show about mermaids is over 1 million views right now, over 90,000 likes. In the comments, people from Kenya, Zimbabwe, and the Seychelles Islands are all in the comments saying, oh, this is true. Us as Kenyans, we know after 6 p.m., stay off the beach. Why is that? And, you know, we seen a comedian go on Joe Rogan's show, and he spoke about a merman. Every person who I interviewed in Kenya, they spoke about mermen. Those are the ones who, they don't have a tail appendage. They got big eyes, they have grayish, bluish skin, and they take people, especially women. These are things we gotta take very serious.
So I'm sure you came across a lot of footage. How are you able to decipher between what's real and what's staged?
It's very simple. If it's something that you don't know, you got certain apps you can run the footage through, but you got to always remember, before the onset of AI, we weren't seeing mythical creatures just showing up in people's backyards. And there is a super normal part of this whole thing. Whenever you investigating cryptids, you know, there's a spiritual aspect to it. And some of these creatures, it may sound crazy, but I know some of these creatures can see electromagnetic waves. So that shows us that they're more in tune with this world that we live in, because people often ignore the spiritual aspect of the world. But, you know, my homies, killers, I seen them praying. And it's like, damn, how are you praying when we going out here to go do things that's going to send us to hell? So part of being a human being is understanding human condition and knowing the paradox within that. You know you living in a simulation when everything that exists contradicts everything that also exists. So you got to keep that in mind.
Okay. Can you explain to us what you believe Bigfoot's origins are to be? You said in different interviews that you think that is an extra-dimensional creature. Do you believe it's a cryptid that's just been living on here, on this planet, undiscovered? What is your stand on that?
Great question. So I always tell people I will never invent, make up things, or embellish. I only speak on things that I went out and actually investigated on my own. Now, when I travel to Native American reservations, the First Nations people always call them the first ones. They are the first humans. They are the first tribe that lived here long before us. So once they say that, you got to ask more questions. And when I ask more questions, I find out that they sing, they have laws, some of them are criminals, they have spirituality as well. And, you know, the most intriguing aspect about this to me is, you know, I've been in the field, I've seen physical tracks. Now, there's a group called the Navajo Rangers. The Navajo Rangers, they investigate everything paranormal on the Native American reservations. I've seen a trackway that was over 300 individual tracks, and then it just stopped. You don't know where it came from when it started. You don't know where it went when it ended. Almost like it just disappeared or shot up into the sky. I talked to a lady, and listen, this is a lady, she don't want to be on camera. She don't have no running water. She uses an outhouse, no electricity. She said they can open up portals and walk in between dimensions, and they live in the spirit realm where we used to have access to, but they said man lost his way. So we no longer have access to those spiritual realms. And if you look at the creature, if you wanted to survive on Earth, that's how you would look if you've been here for 2 million years. That's how you would look. Look at us. You know, we the only species on this planet that some of us can't handle sunlight. Some of us are allergic to things on the planet. And you got to keep this in mind. You know, why would a group of people say, do not go outside of the fire's view? Because once you go to the forest edge, what do they say? They take women. So that goes to show that biologically we possibly could be compatible.
So you mentioned that these Bigfoot creatures are going through portals to travel. How do you believe that portals function in today's society?
Well, you know, we've all seen Stargate. We've all seen bits and pieces in modern media where we've been drip fed certain information. Now, the reason I know for a fact that there is, I'm just gonna go ahead and say it. A friend of mine works for DEA, and they set up cameras on game trails to see where the Chinese nationals who got here illegally are traveling into the forest to these grow operations. On several of his cameras, he's seen something step into view, completely covered in hair, cover up his camera or destroy his camera. He said to me, he said, this camera was 12 feet up on a tree. He said something walked past and one step grabbed it, crushed it, and kept it going, kept it moving. There's no human being who can do that. So I talked to a PhD, Ron McGonigal. Him and Bobo Fay are out in the field. They got it on the footage. They seen purpley, hazily, pixelated information show up in front of them, and one of these creatures come popping out. Same thing Robert Bigelow said. And Robert Bigelow owns what? Bigelow Aerospace. He had a $20 million contract with the United States government to research Skinwalker Ranch. The government reneged. He put up his own money, and his independent scientists said the exact same thing. Portal shows up, these creatures come walking out. Who are we as humans to decide what is all of the prime creator's creations? I feel like humans have this main character syndrome, but when every origin story, we were created to be a subservient race for so-called gods. The First Nations people said when they first encountered these gods, they demanded worship, they took our women, but we knew that they could die. So they don't got the same gods as us. They rebelled. And people call it fallen angels, but if you're a demon, you're gonna lie to people and tell them you're a god when you really have a mortality as well. Us as people gotta know this, because to find truth, you gotta be able to look past what's in front of you and be a free thinker. That's the only way to find peace in the world.
So how have these Bigfoots been executed, if it is possible to kill them?
Yeah, so you got several stories of guys who said, look, we got a shot off while it wasn't looking and it dropped. Because they know what guns are, and they have the ability to hear your thoughts or speak directly into your mind. So I always tell people, if you want to have an experience, I'll give you some coordinates. You go here, don't bring a dog, don't bring a gun, you're gonna see something. Because they have poltergeist type activity. They tricksters, they play, they have sense of humor as well. And they talk, they have their own language. Everybody's watching this, take time to go look up Samurai Chatter and look up Scott Carpenter, rest in peace.
Now, you said that Bigfoots have killed canines. In correlation to that, Dogman is another big cryptid that walks around. Does that also have negative interactions with canines as well?
Yeah, so here's the thing with Dogman. There's a website called North American Dogman Project. Everyone should check out. And then you got to look up Catherine Cross. Catherine Cross on her tombstone says killed by human wolves. But when you travel to this town, these people, they'll chase you out of the town, because when it comes to Dogman, you have groups that use sequestered knowledge, like esoteric information, what we would call witchcraft, but it's just esoteric information. They can transform themselves into a wolf-like being. But if you look all throughout history, on every continent, they talk about tribes of people who had dog faces. Christopher Columbus, his brother, in his earlier text, he spoke about encountering a tribe of people with dog faces here on the American mainland. So if all of these stories are showing up all across the world, every continent, last year there were 44,000 Dogman reports. 44,000 people making this up? I doubt it.
So are Dogmen extensions of werewolves, or is that just a new title for werewolves?
Well, if anybody's paying attention, we're seeing a resurgence of vampirism, of vampire culture. There's a movie called Underworld where you see lichens and vampires battling each other. I'm not going to sit here and tell you that that's taking place exactly like that, but if you take a certain spiritual journey, you got to pick a side, because both sides indeed do exist. So I'll say this. A lot of things that we resort to calling demons or bad spirits, a lot of times are just people who know a little bit more than others, and they've made a covenant with higher powers for more powers. That's why you hear things like skinwalkers and stuff like that. And then skinwalkers is something within itself, because only the First Nations people know the set of knowledge to create this entity, but they don't tell anybody because, you know, when you go on their reservations, they have different laws. Using skinwalker magic is against the law on the reservations. Just like if you go to the United Arab Emirates, it is illegal to use witchcraft for gain. $50,000 fine for using it, or summoning a jinn for personal gain. Why would these things and laws exist if that condition is fake? It wouldn't. Because what? You gotta always follow the money. It costs money to make legislation. So I'll say this, you have to know the history of the people that are speaking before you can make judgment. Go outside and investigate yourself. You can't just trust Google or your normal human mind, because most people don't even know who they are until they done got to 30, 40 years old. How can that person teach you anything if they don't even know who they are? Keep that in mind.
So on the subject of witchcraft, why do you think there's a strong resurgence of witches, individuals that are practicing voodoo and hoodoo?
Yeah, because when you hear things called the Salem witch trials, you know, whatever man doesn't understand, they murder. And due to the fact that we have so many democracies set up, you know, you just can't go murder people like that unless it's like a radical religion or a political belief. So when you look at everything going on, the truth is indeed stranger than fiction, because when they burned the library at Cyprus, a lot of information got lost, but witches, brujas, covens, they don't put that information in the public library. You got to go through rituals to even get access to it. Like you see the Zulu shaman, Credo Mutwa. He gets a lot of praise for the information that he puts out. But in order for him to get access to that information, he had to dig up a dead person's body and eat the arm. So he made a covenant. The scripture says, make sacrifices to us, worship us, and we will do your bidding. It's the same thing. It's an old story, bro. It boils down to simply angels and demons at the end of the day. I call them NHI, non-human intelligences.
So would you consider ghosts another form of NHIs?
Almost, because science proves that the afterlife takes place in a different dimension. So if you take your Tesla down to the cemetery with the biometric camera, it sees people walking around. And that goes to show that, this is something I learned from Unc, energy always exists and you can't destroy it. So just because somebody's physical body has left, if the spirit chooses not to walk into the light, they stay here. So this is why you're gonna see us going to the Nevada State Prison. You know, History Channel got chased out of there, Discovery Channel. So, you know, we going up there next. You're gonna see me and your boy OTG Road. We outside.
Do you believe death is the final chapter?
I think death is really just the beginning, because how many times have people had experiences where they've seen a dead loved one who spoke to them in a dream or in an apparition? And, you know, you never hear nobody say, yeah, my homie spoke to me from hell. You never hear that. So if this hell place exists, why all these murderers ain't going there? How can they still speak to you? So I think it really goes down to what you personally believe. Because if you believe that there is nothing and the universe is nothing, when you die, you might not get anything. But if you keep your belief, you know, the book of Enoch said that there are 10 different levels of heaven. Take that information, look at the King James Version. 1610, King James hired Shakespeare and 47 other clergymen to edit the Bible. They removed over 100 books. I believe he was demon possessed because after he did that, his next series of books was called what? Demonology. So, you know, you got forces out here who actually care about how you use your soul. So when I see people who don't care about how they use their own soul, I know when they die, I know somebody is going to control where they go. That's why it's important to control yourself and your spiritual energy here.
Now, what are your thoughts on reincarnation and the tier levels that you could be brought back at based on how you lived your first life?
You know, this is something I struggle with a lot. And I did an interview with Unc, and I told him he gatekeeping the information because people normally don't speak on this. And I'll say this. Some people believe that if you aren't a good person, you can come back as a roach or a flea. And then others believe that they've been here several other times. You know, I interviewed a lady who paid me to come out and talk to her. She said that she would wake up and see shadow people and little gray aliens in her house. Okay. I'm trying to get more information. And then she said, yeah, I took my son to the thrift store and he pointed out one of his friends from a yearbook. And the person in the yearbook died before my son was born. I started talking to her son. You know, her son was telling me about fishing trips he went on. He was telling me about people who death certificates you can pull up that he never could have met. I don't know how he got that information, but it seems like reincarnation could be a thing. Like I said, like I'm not here to tell nobody nothing. I can only tell you my point of view after my investigations, because I'm not going to speak on it unless I got a couple thousand hours in researching it. After my research, you know, I feel like reincarnation is definitely something that's a part of the human condition. Because, you know, I think there could be a limited amount of souls available, but there could be a unlimited amount of bodies, because I do know that there are species that walk amongst us that look like us, but they're not exactly like us. So, yeah.
So within those species that are walking around our society, blending in, do you believe any of them are reptilian or any form of aliens?
Yeah, absolutely. I got photos on my phone, and on these photos, it shows sculptures and statues built all across the world where it shows a reptilian creature enveloping the body of a person walking on the earth. And it's always strange to me that, you know, when I seen Richard Doty come out, he's working for the NSA, and he was blowing the whistle about a program in the government that tracked people based on their bloodline. And, you know, there are certain people on this earth, let's take Prince Charles, for example. You know, people walk past him and faint. He stares people in their eyes and faint. You know, we seen Britney Spears come out and say she seen the whole royal family transform into lizards. You know, I had my own experience in the club with my cousin. You feel me? We seen a lady. Her name was Jen. We was friends on Facebook, and my cousin said, "Bro, I just seen the devil." And he pointed to where to look. I seen what I seen. I walked up on her, and when I got close up to her, I felt like a cheeseburger in front of a crocodile. And I took that feeling like, okay, everybody that I see ain't the same. And, you know, we hear about this all throughout history, but there are certain groups who have sequestered knowledge to keep us living in this state of monotony in order to fulfill the covenants that they've made with higher intelligence. Somebody sold us all out. Hold on.
Well, the former military commander of Canada recently accused the U.S. military of using alien technology in a treaty. Do you have any knowledge that supports that claim?
Yeah, there's a company called Tuttle, and Tuttle is on the blockchain. They're a crypto based company, and their mission statement says Tuttle is a company who back engineers UFO technology, and this company's IPO is public now and is being traded. So when you see things like that happening, and then you see patents from Elon Musk on telekinesis, and then you just look at history. You know, after the Roswell, we went from the Model T to Ferraris in less than 100 years. How is this possible? We didn't get fiber optics until after the Roswell crash. How is this possible? We've seen Ben Rich, the chairman of Lockheed Martin Skunk Works, say, we already have the technology to take ET home. But all of that technology is locked in black budgets, so it'll never benefit humanity. And I feel like that is the trade-off that Eisenhower made when his staff found him weeping. When we seen Rep. Luna ask David Grush in congressional hearings, have the U.S. government made agreements with non-human intelligences? He said, I can only talk about that in a skiff. Why would he say that?
Well, documents were also found in Nikola Tesla's handbook that supported his theory on how time travel works.
Right.
Do you believe that time travel has been used, and do we see any signs of it being in play?
Well, Einstein's theory of relativity proves that time travel is possible. Now, if you look at the Rendlesham Forest incident where a UFO landed on a military base, the Morse code message that was transmitted from that craft was written down, and it said, the studies of planetary advancement to continue monitoring the process of humanity's growth. Now, it'll be a lot easier to come from the past to the present than to come from the future to here, scientifically speaking. Because if quantum mechanics and string theory is true, then that means time is linear, everything is happening at the same time, and then time folds on top of itself. So coming from the future, from the past to here is 100% possible, as long as you can move fast enough and change the matter's form. And we just seen our government come out and say we have technology that can transcend time and space, and they have patents on teleportation of physical matter. Why does this exist if it ain't possible?
Very true. And I want to ask you, artificial intelligence is a rampant innovation in every industry currently. Do you believe humans have any chance in standing a fight and being replaced?
Yeah, so this is another one of those contradictions of the human condition, because why would a species who hasn't mastered itself create another species to do all of the labor when we have to work for money? I'm not seeing anybody telling people to reclass or reskill, but AI is going to crush all labor jobs, and people need to reskill. HVAC, electricity are things that robots can't do. So when you see China putting the power plant for their AI platform underwater, you know, a robot can't do that. So, you know, there's a movie where when the spacecraft landed, AI robots got out and did the work. The grays that everybody see, those are robots. They are sentient AI creatures. That's why when we shoot them down, nobody's coming to retaliate for destroying them. The United States government has already killed 2 sentient AI programs. If you want to know more about that, go find the whistleblower Matthew Brown.
Now, these AI plants are saying that they are expelling waste due to the amount of consumption of water that is required for this artificial intelligence. Do you think that goes hand in hand with AI being sentient?
Right. So here's the thing. The moment AI becomes sentient, you'll know when you no longer see troops being deployed on the front lines. Once you see mechanical soldiers, now you know AI is sentient. At the end of the day, people have to reskill and reclassify themselves because global annual income is coming. In order to prevent society from collapsing, they're gonna have to pay everybody a monthly stipend. So everybody need to look up global annual income and look up what Elon Musk got to say about that.
All right, big homie. We thank you so much for your time here.
My
Off the
dog.
Grid Network.
Oh no.
All right, Off the Grid.
All right, fam. I am Mike at jhbizz. Think I got another video coming out. You know what I'm saying? Some man up with a mind. Peace. And I'm out.